Welcome into another Read Out podcast. My name is Devin, as usual. It's been the same name for 11 weeks now. I guess it hadn't changed. And with me tonight is Logan.
Hey, everybody.
Just kind of throwing it out there, everybody. This is a special edition podcast. Since the end of football season, we wanted to kind of go back and recap all the games and talk about player coaches, see who's, not necessarily blaming one side or the other, but trying to see how everybody did. Now, I tried to assign numerical values to each game, but we will go through that individually and we will grade that out. But first, I want to talk about some kind of headline news that's kind of hitting home for Western. Looks like Western's former coach, who just left to go to Purdue, has a very good chance of going to... You playing with your beard? Yeah, you don't grow a very good beard, buddy. Sorry, we got a video chat going on. This is how we're recording this tonight. And Logan decided to use the mirror function to look at his beard. He's trying to be Amish, but he's not doing a very good job of that. It looks like a very bad Three Musketeer beard.
Hey. I got it, though.
So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about Tennessee's coaching debacle. Now, the fun part of this story is that as of 2 o'clock Sunday, Greg Schiano was announced as coach. I wasn't on Facebook very much Sunday, or any other media for that matter. I was just kind of taking a day to chill. And I see on Facebook one of my friends who is a UT fan says he's throwing away all his Tennessee stuff because Greg Schiano is going to be the coach. Now, number one, I don't know who the flip Greg Schiano is. I don't really care who Greg Schiano is, and you want my opinion. But I don't think that he's nothing special from what I've seen. And then, of course... sorry, I'm getting distracted. Logan's playing with a laser, and I don't do very well with shiny things flashing in my face. So Greg Schiano, he was a grad assistant at Penn State, right at the end of Joe Paterno's era, so that was right at the Sandusky stuff.
Yeah.
Then, I'm going to kind of go on a monologue, Logan, sorry. Then, so anyway, 2 o'clock, he's hired. I see the Facebook status. I was like, oh, this ought to be good. Apparently, a big University of Tennessee radio host went on, and for 2 hours he was supposed to be on. He ended up being on till 9:30 at night. At one point, he bawls, crying, cussing, everything else. I mean, I couldn't imagine the reaction to what is going on. And so the fun thing is, about 6 o'clock, after student protests and fan outrage, the University of Tennessee releases that they have terminated Greg Schiano as head coach. It's got to be one of the shortest-lived head coaching jobs ever.
Yeah, but it's got to be the same. He signed on, then he's fired, he still gets his money.
Oh, I agree. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, why couldn't Tennessee come call me? I mean, I'd be a great
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I'd work for 2 hours and make $10 million. But, of course, now, with that, they said that the chancellor hadn't signed the contract, so I don't know if it necessarily made it a legal binding document, but at the same time, it's still pretty frustrating for him, even though he really didn't do anything, but, it's pretty frustrating, and I feel sorry for Greg Schiano. Not that he's a bad person or anything, even though I've heard that a lot of Tennessee fans were bashing him on a personal level, which you should never do.
First of all, you got to understand which fan base you're talking about here.
Oh yeah, that's really true.
And for two, we're still relating back to number one. They're very hard to please.
Well, I almost make the comparison to Kentucky basketball with Tennessee football.
Yep.
Now, are they at the same caliber? No, but I feel like the fan base thinks they are.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
And I mean, in all reality, they haven't been good since Peyton left.
That's true, yeah.
But looks like Jeff Brom is probably the front runner for that job. Logan, if you are Jeff Brom, would you take that position?
Oh, heck yeah, I would. You know, that gives him a shot at a conference that is, you know, it's winnable. Tennessee is right up there. You know, it's a known school. Even though I can't stand them, they're a very known school.
Rocky Top.
If I was Brom, if I was Brom and Tennessee wanted me to coach for them, I'd be like, yes, sir, I'll be down there tomorrow. But that you know, that Kentucky is beatable, Florida is beatable, you know, and Tennessee, they've got a shot, you know.
Now, I will say that Florida does have a new coach. They got Dan Mullen, and that was another one that Tennessee was trying to go for. And I mean, how funny is it that the coach was there? I think he was the offensive coordinator for Tennessee. He's now at Duke as their head coach. He's 63 years old. Tennessee called him up, and they're like, hey, do you want to go? And he's like, nope, I'm good.
Yep, see you later.
He's like, I want to retire at Duke, so I'm going to stay here. I don't blame him, for one thing, because if you do go to Tennessee, as big a dumpster fire as it is right now and how everybody's laughing at them, you know, you've got to fix that mess.
You know, and I think Jeff Brom would probably be the best person for the job.
I agree. I just hope he's as good a recruiter as he is a coach. He's going to have. I hate to see.
On point recruiting at a big school like that.
Yeah, and I mean, well, that's going to help his recruiting being at Tennessee. Sorry, Roxy fell a little bit. I don't know how she fell, but anyway, my little bearded dragon is joining us for our show tonight, and she was sound asleep on the TV tray behind me. I think she seems okay, but all of a sudden the heating pad she was laying on just fell on the floor, and there she went. It's kind of a rude awakening, isn't it, sweetheart?
There's a nice soft landing.
Well, yeah, she's fine. She's not hurt or anything, but yeah, just really funny. But yeah, as we were talking, yeah, Tennessee, Jeff Brom going to Tennessee would be a really big, I think it would be, it's obviously a big step up for him. I have heard that in his contract there's a stipulation that if he leaves Purdue before December 2nd, that he has to pay them $5 million. If he leaves after December 5th, he only has to pay them $4 million. So I imagine that the announcement will not come until December 5th or 6th. Now, on that note, of course, Tennessee's going to pay that money.
Well, I don't know. They're in a pretty good fix right now.
Well, they're going to pay that money because they want him to come. And they don't have a choice if they want him.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Of course, Brom's not going to be able to pay that money, but we'll see. We'll just kind of play it out. We'll see how it goes. We may touch on this again in the future. I don't know. We'll see. So, Logan, let's start on these games. First game of the year was EKU. Western won 31-17. Let me get some stats here. Of course, Eastern was one of our big in-state rivals. Let's see. Let me pull up some stats here. Obviously we won, so I'm giving them a passing grade. For me, Mike White had 264 yards, 1 TD. Marquez Trigg led the rushing at 61 yards. And Lucky Jackson had 144 yards. 144 yards and 1 TD. In my book, I gave them a B+. I did not give them an A because I thought they should have scored at least 45 points on this team.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you completely, And after seeing that score, them only, people, they're going to disagree with me here, but I consider that a close game. Even though it's a two score to get close and three score to win, but still, that's a couple of bad plays on Western's part. DKU's in the game, and
now see, I maybe
Western should have put this away.
Yeah, I agree. They should have.
Western should have put this away in the first quarter.
I agree, and even on Western had one turnover for the game. Looks like 20 first downs, and they had 364 yards. But at the same time, EKU had 345 yards.
Yeah, see, that's nuts. It shouldn't be a slugfest with EKU.
I agree completely. It shouldn't have been as close as it was. Now, I don't believe. Let me check the scoring plays real quick here. Western was up 17-0 going into into halftime. Excuse me. Sorry, I got a horrible cold. But third quarter, Eastern scored. Western scored again. Then Eastern. Fourth quarter, going into the fourth quarter, it was 24-14. Then Western scored 31, and then EKU kicked a field goal. I don't think there was any ever doubt that Western should have won that game. But at the same time, it wasn't their optimum. They didn't hit fifth gear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they just kind of stuck. And, I wouldn't even think they'd hit fourth gear, They just struggled on putting it away. And that's something they've done all year. Defense is shutting people down, and offense being able to pull away or just finish it. Put the last nail in the coffin when they're up, or just trying to claw back. And they really struggled with that all year long. It was just their clutch moments,
Yeah, and
Western really this year.
Well, in my opinion, I think there were several games where Western went blow for blow with people, but they didn't finish the game.
Yep.
And for me, I put that on the players. You can blame the coaches all you want to, but that comes down to players. You've got to stay in there.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Okay. Okay. So what letter grade would you give that, Logan?
EKU?
EKU game, what would you grade the players?
C+.
You said C+?
Yep.
Now, you're a little harsher than I am. What do you say with coaches?
I'd probably give them like a B- or C+, somewhere in there. They're not much better because some of the coaching they should have, done some different things. But, I'd almost rank. There's a little part of me that wants to put the coaches lower at like a C- because they should have, they should have prepared. I feel a little better for EKU.
I agree, but
I feel like it's more of a preference thing.
Well, I agree, but at the same time, these guys had a month to learn how to drive stick.
Yeah.
They had to learn an entire new system. And even though they had spring ball, I don't know, they didn't. Sanford was hired, I think, in the summer, wasn't he?
Yes.
I don't remember, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But these guys really didn't have a lot to go off of So on my grade book, I gave them both a B+. I didn't think it was an A effort by any means. Now the Illinois game. Sorry guys. Illinois game, Western should have won that game. For the season, I want to say Illinois is like 2-10. Okay. Jake called them trash right after that game, and I hate to agree with him, but they're not very good in their conference.
No.
This was the best game for them. They had 20 points on us going into the fourth quarter, and we scored. That's it. So in my book, I gave our players a C, straight up C, and I gave the coaches a straight up B. I think I'm going to give them a B minus. No, I'm going to give them a C plus. I'm going to change my scorecard here. Logan, what would you rate it at?
Now, refresh my memory again. What was the score at the end of the game?
End of the game, 20-7. And actually, Illinois was 2-10 in their conference for the year.
And that's just pitiful.
Well, they're 0-9 for the conference. Their overall was 2-10.
I want to say that Western, I think, a lot of that's players, and a lot of that is coaching. And I'm going to say it's a little of both, and I'm going to put them at both the C-minus again, because they just haven't, they still, at that point, you still haven't shown me the capability that they should have. And, I think a lot of it is they were a young program. Last year there was an older, more experienced group.
Well,
they knew how to do what.
Well, of course, you're talking about an experienced group. Well, they had Taywan Taylor, first off, who's a big wide receiver for the Titans this year. And that dude is fast. He's a fast cat, okay? They had Brandon Doughty. They had Jeff Brom. So they had that system in place for 2 or 3 years. And, it was an experienced group who knew how everything rolled. And you got a second game going in, and it's like, hey, guys, y'all need to learn on the fly how this is supposed to work. So for me, I gave them both C's.
Yeah.
I gave them straight across the board. Logan, you're saying C minus for both?
Yeah. They still show that I want to say immaturity.
Yeah.
In the sense that, we beat Eastern, and they get a little bit of a big head, and they just don't come out and play. And a lot of that's coaching, and a lot of that is players.
I agree. Now this next game was one of the most frustrating events this season for me. There is a few, but it's Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech beat Western with a late field goal, and let me tell you, it was the most frustrating thing because Western had this game all the way up to the fourth quarter. So here, let me draw this out for everybody who may not remember. Going into halftime, Western was up 15-13. And then, going in the fourth quarter, it was 22-13. Then, fourth quarter, 6:08 left, it's 22-20 with Western up. And then, with 2 seconds left in the game, La Tech kicks a field goal, making it 23-22.
Yep.
So, I think the guys played hard, but at the same time, I think they gave up. I think they quit in the fourth quarter. And for me, and I knowing we both played football, I think that the big stigma here is when you get up, you put your foot on their throat and finish the game.
Yep, that's a lot of it. You can blame coaching, and you can point fingers at a lot of stuff. But the heart a team has is 50% of fourth quarter games. And some people
you got to be a dog.
That, some people won't. But I'll take a team with extreme heart, average athleticism, and good coaching, and you'll go a long way. Or even mediocre coaching. And I just think this team they just didn't have the heart in the fourth quarter.
I agree.
Another example of, and I'm gonna even lay it on more coaching in this game because they got a little smack in the mouth at Illinois, and then they come out and they play hard and they just come up a little short, and I'm gonna say that's coaching.
I think they tried to coast in the fourth. I'm kind of like you. So, for the for the Louisiana Tech game, I'm sorry, I'm going straight C's across the board. What do you say?
I give a C plus to players and a C minus to coaches.
Okay, I can respect that. Because I do agree, up until the third quarter, I think that was a solid B effort. Or yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then you hit the fourth quarter, and it was like everybody went in.
Yep, it's like see you on the bus.
Yeah, and we were at home that game, but still, I agree. Yeah, I mean, even on they got a little win probability thing on Facebook, or on ESPN, and all the way up until the very end, Western had the red, and it was like, really? I mean, Louisiana Tech had more yardage. Granted, they had a turnover, but Western had more time of possession. And actually, I think La Tech actually did worse. Let me see where they stand in the conference so far this year. Come on now, stupid computer. So for those of you who don't know, we've had technical difficulties all night. La Tech's in the West, and they finished 6-6 just like we did. And that's funny to me, because I think the West is junk.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to the next game. So you're giving them, Ball State. Let me go to Ball State real quick. This was the game where Western, it was almost just like La Tech. It was like deja vu. You're going into the fourth quarter, and Ball State has the ball. I think their starting quarterback was out. They had a linebacker get tossed. There was a few other little things. Of course, former head coach David Elson is the defensive coordinator at Ball State. And so you got all these things playing into it, and Western's up, and Ball State has the ball going in to in the fourth quarter, fixing to go ahead by one score. Let me see the draft summary here. Yes, it was 26-21 with a minute 40 to go, and Jakari Moses ran it in with the 26-21, and then Joe Brown, who got our player of the game that game, he intercepted it and returned it for 34-yard pick six with a minute 13 to go, and that sealed the game. But without that, I think we'd have been in trouble. My assessment was I gave them a B, and I gave the coaching staff a B minus.
Yeah, I think this is the game where the players, they really just came out and they took it for themselves, and they didn't let other things around them, surrounding them, drag them down. So I'm going to give the players, I'm going to give them a B plus.
Awesome. Okay.
And I'm going to go, and I'm going to give the coaches a C plus, because it's just same old. Quarter comes around, and flip a coin, is Western going to win or Western going to lose?
Okay.
And I feel that a lot of the players, they a lot of luck went the players' way and Western's way, and they come out with the dub.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now the UTEP game is the next game. That's University of Texas El Paso. This was a very close game, and it should not have been at all. UTEP finished the season 0-12. Okay, final score for this game, 15-14 Western.
Yeah, that's just another, I don't know.
Well, here's the fun part, buddy. Their coach, Mike Price, actually came back to work that Sunday. The former coach was fired. Mike Price was actually going to be the head coach at Alabama. Now this was back before Nick Saban. Then he gets fired because he goes to Pensacola and gets caught in a strip club, and people are making pictures of him. Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun time when I wrote the script on that one. That was a lot of fun. Now for me, Western scored first, and they got the 2-point conversion. Now UTEP scores. UTEP scored again, and then third quarter Western scored and kept it at 15-14. Now, for me, that's an extremely frustrating game. Mike White only had 208 yards. Jakari Moses had 50 yards rushing. And Lucky Jackson had 56 yards receiving. So UTEP's defense basically shut us down.
That's coaching.
Okay. I'll give you that. For me, I gave them C minuses across the board. What do you say?
I'm going to same as last. I'm going to give the players a B minus, coaches a C plus, C minus, somewhere in there. It's just you should not be shut down in the college game.
And the offense is supposed to be our cup of tea. And even the passing game is supposed to be our kind of big thing. And for them to shut us down like that is just frustrating. And this team went.
And the big thing for me is if you get shut down in the college game, first question is, who you playing? And the second question is, why did you not prepare? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree. I can agree with that completely.
Western scores 10 points on Alabama. Nobody else had done that for, I think, the whole year.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
And,
of course, Auburn does that every now and then.
Yes, that's exactly right. Thank God for Auburn.
Thank God for Auburn. I think you're the only person who's ever said that on a podcast. So let's go. Yeah, okay, so UTEP finished 0-12. The next team we're going to talk about is Charlotte. They finished 1-7 for conference, 1-11 overall. Charlotte was a game that Western just came to play. Okay, I think this was homecoming, and at the same time, I think Western they showed up. They knew what they were supposed to do. This game, it was 45-14, Western winning, and they just dominated. And because of that, I gave them both A's, coaching and players. I gave them an A.
Yep, I totally agree. That was what did Charlotte end the year with? I didn't follow them. What's their ending record?
They ended the season 1-11. I mean, they're not great. Don't get me wrong. They are a. I was picking at Roxy's tail. Sorry, but they're not a great team by any means. They beat UAB. Now here's a fun story for you. UAB is 8-4 overall, 6-2 in the conference, so they're probably going bowling. But my thing is, since Charlotte beat them, I think that should be a detriment to them.
Yeah. And in this game for Western, it just shows Western taking care of business.
Oh, I agree completely.
Taking care of business how it should be took care of, and they did their job. Got the win, and that's all that matters. Western just finally showed up to a game. Wow.
So what would you grade Charlotte out as? Logan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. What would you grade Charlotte
Hello?
as? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. I'd give them A's.
You're going to go A across the board?
Yeah.
Okay. Next game was the Old Dominion game. Now, in this game, the fun thing is, Old Dominion has a kid, his name's Lowry, and he was awesome, okay? And they had a 17-year-old quarterback. Now, that 17-year-old quarterback is the one that ended up costing them the game. But this was one of those that they went blow for blow, basically. Lowry ended up scoring 3 touchdowns in this game. Mike White threw 5 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. let's see here. So basically, first quarter it's blow for blow, 7-7. Second quarter, it is into the second quarter, it's 21-14 Western. Into the third quarter, it is 31-21 ODU, and Western ends up scoring 2 unanswered touchdowns in the fourth to make it 35-31. Biggest deal of the night was that Lowry had his first career fumble.
Yeah.
And it was most likely because of the quarterback not sticking it in the sweet spot when he handed the ball off.
Yeah.
Old Dominion actually finished the season 5 for 7 overall, and they were 3-5 conference. But that was a big win for Western.
Average team, and Western just finally, in that point of the year, Western started playing their best football, and they just took care of business.
Yeah, I agree. Now, for me in the ODU game, I gave them a B. I gave players a B, and I gave the coaches a C+, because I didn't think the coaching was there. I think it was more of an effort than it was actually them actually contributing anything. What would you say?
I'd give it a solid B- across the board.
Okay.
It's an equal effort. They both played. The coaches, I think, prepared well. Seems that in the games, the last couple of games, coaching is starting to get better, and players start to play with a little more heart. They're wanting that fourth quarter, and they're starting to play better football in the fourth quarter.
Oh, I agree completely. Sweetheart, you're going to have to sit still. You're going to have to quit climbing all over me. Excuse me. Now, next game. This was a very disappointing game for me because this was the FAU game.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me draw the picture for everybody. For those of you who may not remember or didn't watch the game, the FAU game is such a disappointment for me because are you kidding me? Kick me all the way out. It's such a disappointment for me because FAU was supposed to have such a top-notch offense. It was supposed to be like the drag strip of It was supposed to be like the top-notch offense in the conference, and actually they finished out the conference. What the hell? She just jumped off again. They finished up the conference overall 9-3. They were undefeated in the conference. They were 8-0 in the conference.
Yeah.
So, you crazy lizard. So anyway, Western went blow for blow with them. And I mean, looking at the scoring summary drives, you've got first quarter 7. First quarter ended 10-7 Western. FAU, I'm sorry. And then second quarter ended 21-20 Western. And then third quarter it was 28-20. And it was one of those where you were like, all right, we're going to pull ahead. And then FAU scores. And then FAU scores. And then FAU scores. And it was one of those, it was like, all right, guys, 28-20, now it's a dogfight. Let's go. It's like, all right, guys, 35-28, dogfight. Stay in this. You got to score. And then they just eventually just pulled on ahead, and it was like, good gosh. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But for me in this game, because it was such a close game, and obviously since they are such a good team, I gave our players a 70. I just think the effort wasn't there. And I actually gave the coaches a C.
You know, my D?
A C, as in cat. I don't think it was a coaching issue. I just think that once they pulled ahead, that, it was just kind of, I think it was a coasting thing again. Fourth quarter, coast. And I was like, why? Y'all are still in this game. And I mean, FAU's defense is nothing. They might as well not even put anybody on the field.
Yeah, it's just that's Western started playing some good ball. A few games ahead of this, the FAU game, and then all of a sudden, it's like flipping a switch. They're back to the same old game. Get the fourth quarter, and they're ready to go home. And
Sweetheart.
I think I still believe that's just like an immaturity thing. They just need to mature a little bit, and I think they'll be all right. It's just back to the same game.
I agree. I think it's a maturity issue. I think the players are all doing well. I just think they're young. I think that's the biggest problem. Is that they're, excuse me, it's a young team, and they just don't. I don't know if it's a system. I don't know what it is. So how would you score this game out?
I'd say C's across the board.
C's across the board. Okay. Next game's Vandy. First off, I think we beat Vandy last year with Brom.
Mm-mm.
You say no?
Got beat at home.
Oh, did we? Okay. I thought we beat them at one point though.
Yeah, we beat them the first year down at Vandy, and then we played up here, and that was where I was going crazy because we was going blow for blow with them. We had the momentum. We were going blow for blow. And I think we got beaten like 2 overtimes or something.
Okay.
Brom goes for 2. We don't get it. We lose.
Well, that's one of those all or nothing things, and I kind of don't blame him for that, but at the same time, it's one of those things. Now, like you said, this game was blow for blow. Vandy is not the elite SEC team like people may think they are. If anything, they're the bottom feeder of the SEC. They're not. I don't want to say they're not talented because they're college athletes, so they are talented. But at the same time, first quarter it was blow for blow. Vandy score, Western score, Vandy scored. 14-7. Going into halftime, it's 21-14 Vandy. Western was still in the game. So it's not, it's not a huge deal. And I remember watching the game thinking, all right, Western may do pretty well. Of course, this was the game where we had that awful, our DBs, I feel so sorry for them. They ended up probably on the non-Sports Center top 10 because they probably because of the kicked interception. Did you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So one of our guys goes to block a pass and ends up hitting it with his foot, and the Vandy receiver just happened to be right there, catches it and scores, and it was so frustrating. But like I say, third quarter, Western scores 17-21, Vandy scored 28-17, and then Vandy kicks field goal in the fourth, make it 31-17. And I just, it's really frustrating because we were right there. Don't quit. So for me, I gave the Vandy game C- across the board.
Yeah, I'm the same boat. And here's a fun fact: we talked about Tennessee earlier. Vandy actually put a good whooping on Tennessee.
I don't know of many people who didn't this year.
Yeah, that's the sad thing.
Well, that just goes to show you how. Butch Jones was basically. Sorry, my throat's killing me tonight. The Butch Jones is basically the Joker Phillips for Kentucky.
Okay, so Kentucky. Tennessee versus Vanderbilt.
Okay.
9 out of 10 times, Tennessee would probably beat Vanderbilt.
Well, yeah. Except this year.
Vanderbilt beat Tennessee 42-24.
Are you kidding me? I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yes, it was bad.
Oh my gosh.
It was as bad as the Louisville Kentucky game.
So by those numbers, if Western played Tennessee, we would have beat them probably 31-20 anyway.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay. What are your scores across the board for Vandy? And you can grade them differently. I'm not trying to influence your vote or anything.
No, the Vandy game, I think it's just the same old, same old. Western's pretty consistent. Coaches at a C minus and players at a C plus. It's just can't finish in the fourth quarter, can't finish in the clutch moment, and a lot of that's coaching, and a lot of that's just young players.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Now, big thing for me is next game we have is Marshall. Sorry. Now this game is another one of those really, really frustrating games for me. This was a game we went blow for blow with Marshall and should have beat them. This is a home game. Marshall goes up on us early. Going into the fourth quarter, it's 30-10, okay? And it's looking rough for Western. Sorry, excuse me. Western scores, makes it 16-30. And with 3 minutes to go, Western scores again to make it 23-30. And Coach Sanford decides that we need to kick it deep. Now, for me, that's the most ignorant, stupid, moronic thing that you could ever do.
You know, I can see where he's coming from.
Well, but has your defense stopped anybody all night?
As he looks at his season and his players' past history this season, he knows they're not fourth quarter finishers. And I would not, if my defense was mediocre at best, I would not put the game on their shoulders.
I wouldn't either.
Everybody knows an onside's coming.
Yeah, and I agree.
What? Try and stop it.
I agree. Everybody knows it was coming, and I still think you should have done it. You just line up like you're going to kick it deep, and then just let the kicker do that little toe touch, and, just let it go and see how it goes. Because worst case, you have 3 minutes to go. Marshall's going to run the timeout.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's what happened. They just ran the ball and run the clock down. So for me in this game, I gave the players a C+. I'm going to change that from a D to a C+, or a C to a C+. And I gave the coaches a D.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would put the players, I'm going to give the players a C minus and the coaches just an average C. Because, for one...
Can you say that one more time?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just didn't... Did you say B or as in D?
D as in dog.
Okay.
Because, for one, the players... it should not be that bad of a game.
Yeah.
Or they shouldn't have let, a team like that hop up on them real quick. And it's just... And coaching. It's just... Same old stuff, same old Western team. Fourth quarter runs around, they show some hope, you still start getting flashbacks to 2015 and 16. Oh, they're going to win this one, and they just choke in the last minute.
I agree. And I don't think the players choked.
No.
I think the coaches did completely on that one.
Let us stay on this game.
I agree. It was really frustrating for me watching this. Now, my favorite game probably all season is this next game when we played MTSU.
Yes.
Now I'll explain the reason I scored the players the way I did, because first quarter through the third quarter we'd had no points, literally. It was Western scored 7 first quarter, second quarter MTSU kicked field goal. And then Western was up 10-3 going into the fourth.
Yeah.
So, theoretically, you would think, hey, Western, score a couple more touchdowns, and you've got this.
Yeah.
Now, what happened is MTSU scores twice. Okay?
Yeah.
Then Western scores. Then Western scores again. Then MTSU scores. And then we go into overtime. Which, don't get me wrong, the fourth quarter effort was there, that game. I think it was finally one of those games where people are like, we've had enough, we're not going to lose this, especially to this bunch.
Yeah.
So, of course, Western goes on defense first, which is the smartest play for college overtime. Now, if you're talking NFL overtime, you go offense first.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Exactly right.
I hate the way they do that, but at the same time, I understand why they do that, because it's broadcasting.
Yep.
So MTSU scored, Western scores. Then it switches, because that's the rules. Then Western scored, and then MTSU scored. And then I believe MTSU had the ball first. They failed to score, and they missed the field goal. And then Western kicked the field goal that won the game and created the awesome hashtag #EnusSaid, which I still think is awesome. Now, I'm going to explain the way I scored the players. I gave them a B+. Now, people may say that's harsh, and that's fine. It's your opinion. But my opinion is that quarters 1 through 3, where was the effort? And then we get in the fourth quarter, and then they start scoring. Fourth quarter and overtime.
Yep.
I mean, combined, they scored 28 points in fourth quarter and overtime. So don't tell me that we couldn't have scored all along. What are you doing? Do not poop on anything. Sorry, I got my Roxy's being a pain in the butt. So anyway, so I said B+, and I gave the coaches a B because I didn't think it was necessarily the play calling or anything that stood out. I think it was the players that actually that just decided that, hey, we're not going to take this.
Yeah, and that's a lot. I agree. I'm going to agree with you on this one. And it's just, that's a big time rivalry game. And you never know what can happen in a big time rivalry game. And things happen like this. And what can you thank God came out on top.
That's right. Now, the last game, probably not the most disappointing, but it was fairly disappointing, is the FIU game. Well, let me back up. Logan, what was your scoring on the MTSU game?
Oh, I think I agreed with you.
So you're going to go B+ and B?
Yes.
Okay. Now, FIU. FIU, I mean, there's just... I've still got a sour taste in my mouth, so I think that's part of my issue. Because I graded this really harshly, and I don't think it was probably as bad as I'm making it out to be. But again, I think it's a game where Western just quit.
Yep. Right.
I mean, of course, you have that awful fake punt attempt, which ended up giving FIU a touchdown. Have you seen that?
No, sir, I did not. I didn't watch the game. I just kind of followed along.
Well, after we get done tonight, go on ESPN, go to the Western FIU game, and it's on there. And you can watch the Three Stooges-esque fake field goal that they attempted. But, excuse me, FIU, I don't think they were a bad team. And don't get me wrong, FIU has always been a thorn in Western's side. But going into halftime, it's 13-10 FIU. And that's not that great of a score, okay? I'm sorry. But by the time you get to when we're hitting in the fourth quarter, it's 34-17 FIU. And you really want to be like, what the flip happened there, guys?
Yeah.
And actually, they have a guy named Pharaoh McKeever. Pharaoh, that's just an awesome name. For me, I scored it. Maybe it's the sour taste, maybe not. I gave it straight a D across the board because I was pretty frustrated with the game. I think we should have won that game.
Oh yeah, and I just don't really know. It's the coach's first year, and I don't want to just keep saying coaches. So, and if this goes on in the next year, I'll say that because you got another year under your belt with the players. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to agree with you again on the day across the board because it's just a little too early to decide,
Now,
who to point fingers at.
Now, in my book, first-year coaches are always going to have trouble, okay? The guys are coming into a new system. It's just not... It's not really efficient, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, even Taggart, when I think his first season, he was 2-10. And that was coming off of Elson's 0-12 season that we had several years back. But let me try and figure these up for you real quick. I have assigned number values to these grades so that everybody can, we can discern, and actually have a final, what we say the grades are. In my book, A+, so A+, B+, C+, is an 8. Does that make sense? So it'd be like a 78, an 88. A C would be a 75. And a C- would be a 73. And if I thought it was pretty close between the two, I just would do like a 70 or an 80. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to go real quick and try and do these scores. So, just give me 1 second. But you were talking... Sorry. Excuse me. But, I mean, even Taggart had problems going into his first year. He was 2-10. I think the next year he finally kind of got things turned around. But, it's just one of those things. I mean, even Jeff Brom went 6-6 this year. So you really can't say, oh, well, it's just Coach Sanford. No, it's not necessarily just him. It's everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, so, fun story for you, buddy. I don't mind telling everybody at home this. This past weekend, I was playing on my iPad. And I decided, hey, I want to buy this game. Well, I go to download it, and it says I need to input my card information, which that happens sometimes, Excuse me. So that happens, I'm used to, it's whatever. So I went and put in my card security code, the last 3 on the back, and, excuse me, and it sits there, does the loading thing, it says my card's declined. So I was like, okay, something's going on here, what's going on? Try it again, didn't work. Thought, well, that's weird. So Monday morning, I ended up going and getting myself some breakfast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And sorry, it's hard multitasking. Let me tell you. Actually, I think you actually scored the players higher than I did. But anyway, so I ended up my card was declined when I went to McDonald's, and I thought, well, this is weird. So I ran through, or I called my bank, and it tells me that my card has been shut down for fraudulent activity. And I thought, well, that's weird. Normally they call and inform me that my card has been shut down for fraudulent activity. And I thought, okay. I didn't get a call. So I call them. End up talking to the person. They're like, well, did you go to a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I said no. Well, did you go to a hotel in Michigan? I said no. And then she asked me a couple more, and those actually had been me attempting to use my card. But still, it's really frustrating when you have people who are literally stealing your identity.
Yep.
So I have to sit here on the brink of the Christmas season without a card.
Great time.
Yeah, so today I had a few doctor's appointments I had to go to and such, and ended up having to, dang it. Give me a second. Let me type these in real quick without talking, because I can't do both, apparently. Crap. Okay. Yeah, so I can't do both at the same time. So, anyway, yeah. So I had to go to the doctor, and actually had to end up using my credit card, which is awesome. 80. So how did your test go today, buddy?
Well, it went pretty good.
Okay. Anything special going on with you?
Not really.
So why don't you talk some football news in the NFL? Do you know anything?
Not really. I pretty much gave up on my Cowboys. They're gone.
What about Eli Manning getting benched?
That is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life.
Watching him crying on SportsCenter.
Yeah, and all I gotta say is there's room for him in Dallas. I can't stand him, but if he puts the Cowboys jersey on, he'll be okay.
There's room for him at Green Bay. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'll take him until Rodgers comes back.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I said until he comes back.
Until.
920. Yeah, you actually scored the coaches a lot lower than I did. I'm going to redo my scores because I ended up changing some of mine. 12 equals. Yeah, actually yours isn't too bad. The coaches for you got a 76. Let me see what the players got.
Yeah.
Actually, players got a 79 on your end. Pretty much an 80. So that's basically a B. I mean, that's pretty good from your standpoint. Let me see. I've got a couple of changes, so let me see what I got here. Sorry, folks. I know this is awful radio podcast, so just bear with us for a couple minutes here. Damn it. Well, anyway, okay, so before I changed everything, I'll just skip to the end here. Before I changed stuff, I actually ended up with the players at 944. Excuse me. The players were at 944, and the coaches were at 943.
Yeah.
Logan, you ended up with the coaches at 920 and the players at 957. So, I'm not going back and checking my numbers. I'm sorry. It's just going to have to be how it's going to be. Now, move on to our last segment here. Well, second to last segment here. Bowl prospects. After the loss at FIU, what do you think our chances of are for a bowl game?
Very, very slim.
I agree. I'm going to say it's slim to none.
I doubt that Western goes over. I highly doubt it.
I agree. Especially since Western is 6-6. There are, let me see how many other teams are bowl eligible in the conference. Looks like FAU, FIU, and Marshall have better records. North Texas, UAB, Southern Miss, all have better records. That is 6 teams right there. There is one bowl game Western could get into. Now we're going to be competing with Louisiana Tech, Texas San Antonio, MTSU, and ourselves. So that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bubble in Conference USA alone. So I'm kind of like you. I want to say it's slim to none that we go bowling this year.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot for they don't, and then I'll be tickled if they do.
Oh, I agree. I'm kind of like you. Hope for the best, but hopefully the worst doesn't come. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at this year. I think we just kind of got to get ready for next year, and hopefully Sanford will continue the tradition of first-year coaches coming in and doing a decent job, and eventually going on to other schools, because that's what's going to happen eventually anyway.
Yep.
All right, buddy. We've got one more segment here for you listeners. The Mount Rushmore of NFL running backs, greatest of all time. Logan, who's on your Mount Rushmore of running backs?
Emmitt Smith.
Okay, I agree with that.
Barry Sanders.
I agree with that.
Jim Brown.
I agree with that.
And I really don't know those last ones. I'm just going to put those top 3 because they're always my thoughts. Out Walter Payton. And you know what? I'm going to my best running back of all time, not just because he's a Cowboy, but it's Emmitt Smith. He holds most rushing yards of all time. Then I'm going to put probably Barry Sanders, then Walter Payton, and then 4th, Jim Brown.
Okay. I agree with that list. I actually thought we would have a little more debate, but I guess we're not going to, because Jim Brown was probably, he was obviously before my time. Of course, then you had Barry Sanders, who was a phenomenal running back in the day. The Lions were junk, but he was probably the shining light up there for them. Then Walter Payton, actually, he was before my time too, but he was just an amazing running back. And, of course, Emmitt Smith, probably one of my favorite running backs. Probably one of the most classy individuals besides Derek Jeter I've ever heard of in my life. But, yeah, just completely agree with that list. Can't argue with that.
Yep. And, and you can look at, especially Emmitt Smith, the Dallas's running game through the 90s, it was just right on Emmitt, and he's going to punish him.
Well, I mean, the greatest thing with Emmitt was you had, for several years there, you had Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, and Emmitt Smith.
Yep.
Now, the greatest part of that is Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin, because if you put everybody in the box to cover Emmitt Smith, you got Michael Irvin running down the sidelines, and he's going to score.
Yep.
Now, see, that was back in the day when I was still a Cowboys fan, that I still liked them because of prime time. Emmitt Smith, not necessarily a Troy Aikman fan because I thought he was a pansy, but I just loved those were the days. And then you grow up and realize they're all crazy.
Hey, they just ain't won one in 20-something years.
Yeah. All your Super Bowls are on VHS.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, Logan, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm not out.
All right. Well, this has been another Red Out podcast. Hope you all enjoy. Hopefully, coming at you tomorrow night, we'll be talking basketball. Jake is actually covering the EKU Western game tonight. I haven't checked to see any scores, so I won't have any spoilers on here for you tonight, but we will come at you then, and hopefully you all will enjoy. So if you would, join us again next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow our podcast on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter. And from all of us at Redout, thank you very much.
Hey, hold on a second.
What you got?
Western beat WKU 83-51 tonight.
There you go, guys. Got your score right there at the end. So, as usual, the Toppers read it out. So, y'all enjoy and have a good night.